Good evening, everybody. I want to welcome you here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So, a couple things right off the bat. First of all, I couldn't get the setup that I had set up for this video to allow me to go live with it. So, I had to redo it, which is the reason why I'm on here as opposed to on that. So, anyways, we're here, anyways. So, a couple of other things. We're going to be first let you know we're going to be talking about Bon Scott tonight. It is the 45th anniversary just recently passed of his passing. So we're just going to kind of just do a little Bon Scott thing tonight. The other thing too is that this show, What's New, which is a show I do on Saturday nights at 8 o'clock, I'm going to move that back a couple of hours because I wanted to put this in at this time period as opposed to earlier in the day. And so therefore it would have conflicted with that. So I just moved that one back a couple so that I could put this in. This is kind of a last minute thing. Ben suggested I might want to do something for this. And so I took into consideration what he said and decided to do a rock legends thing. Now, most people will know that I'm not really this type of person. I'm not really I guess the best way to say is I don't really delve deep into rock stars and stuff, personalities and stuff like that. I like to talk about the music. I like to talk about their creativity and about what they've added to the groups they've been in and their own solo careers and stuff like that. But as far as their personal life and that goes, not really crazily interested in that. Yeah, sometimes I do follow it here and there if it happens to be particularly interesting for a reason, or if I happen to be reading a biography. I do read the odd biography, but I'm not one of these people that just as soon as a biography of some notable rock musician comes out, I got to read the entire thing from back so that I know every detail about the guy's life. Sorry, I'm just not that kind of a guy. I like to talk about their music, what they do in their personal life and what they do away from music. Not as concerned about it, but there is a little bit of concern towards it, but just not overly amount. So today we're going to talk about Bon Scott. I'm glad to have people here for it. I do apologize that the original setup didn't go through. I can't even figure out why it didn't yet. I'll have to go back. I came to start it up and it wouldn't work, so I got right on this right away. So anyways, this episode, we'll be talking about Bon Scott, obviously, because he's the person we're here to talk about. I know that he was born in Scotland, but his family, if I'm incorrect, somebody will tell me, immigrated to Australia, where he became, I guess, an Australian citizen and lived his life there. He actually died in Great Britain too, so it's kind of funny. Well, it's not funny, but it's kind of ironic, I guess is the better word, that he passed away in the same set of islands that he was born in. So Bon Scott, of course, was a rock musician, singer. And he also played a bit of an odd instrument for rock, which is the bagpipes, and most notable in the song, I believe it's on here. Nope, it isn't. I'm wrong. Not sure where it is, actually. Just looking at the albums that I chose for here, because I'm drawing a blank on it. I can't remember what it was. It'll come to me after. Anyway, so he was notable for playing that, and I always wondered, like, why did he only do it the one time? I thought it was great. It added an element to that song that just never appeared again. I just realized I left my hat here too, so I'm going to put that on. Don't want to blind you guys there. So yeah, so I always wondered why he never did never used it again. I don't think they ever used it on any other song. It was just on that one track. long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. That's it. Yeah. So great, great. Just a great track. You know, to me, whenever I think of AC/DC, that's a track that comes into my mind, right? And of course, he's the center of attention on that particular song. So for those of you who don't know who he is, and I can't imagine there's many of those out there, but he was born in 1964, same year as me, and he died in 1980. Fortunately, I'm still around 45 years later, but he was a young man. Actually, they've got it down. Oh, sorry. My apologies. He wasn't born in 64. He was born in 46. I'm a little on the dyslexic side. He became active in 64. That's what he did. Okay, so yeah, so he wasn't born the same year as me because he'd be about 80 now if he was still alive. Anyways, I've always admired him because he is one of those guys who has that charisma and mindset to be a front man. And believe me, it's both of those things. You have to have a charisma about you to be a front man. You also have that mindset that you're going to be leading the charge on stage. Now, there are some guitarists who will do this as well. You might get the odd other musician that is kind of frontal like that. Roger Waters comes to mind, but he doesn't have the charisma, I think, to handle that. But in order to be a singer and be the front man, you also have to have a good memory because you got to remember the lyrics to all these songs and keep track of which ones you're doing next, right? Yeah, this is not an easy task for many people. And he not only was he a great front man, he was a good singer too. Now, he did have a bit of a nasally voice. Absolutely, he had a bit of a nasally voice, but it was an appealing voice. I liked it. It had a little bit of attitude to it. It was kind of almost gang-like in some ways, you know, bringing on a kind of a whole attitude with the band on stage, and he kind of exemplified that. Him and Angus Young, of course, but Angus was just a ball of energy, whereas I think with Bon, he was more of he had that kind of attitude, you know. I don't know how to describe it anywhere than, you know, like a gangland like type attitude. So I think this is the main cog that this band needed, AC/DC, to make that jump from being just a local Australian band, only big in Australia. And there's been a few bands like that are huge in Australia, but just for whatever reason didn't make that jump. And AC/DC made that jump, and I think that Bon Scott was a large part of that reason because of his stage presence, his vocal performance, and not to take away at all from the music. The music was fantastic. So for me, I kind of like this to be the kind of beginning of it for me. This is where, well, AC/DC started for me with Back in Black, but that's really the only album that Bon Scott didn't sing on that I ever really listened to. Everything that went forward on that, yeah, I've heard it. I sometimes there might be a song or two I like, but really, that album just brought AC/DC to my consciousness, which then sent me back. And I much, much prefer this version of the band with Bon Scott at the front. Not that I have any problems with Brian Johnson. I don't want to turn this into who I like more, Brian Johnson or Bon Scott. I like Bon Scott more, but I like Brian Johnson as well. So this album was kind of the first one that kind of became larger than life for me because it has so many great songs on it. The Jack, She's Got Balls, TNT. These are all songs with attitude, and he's perfectly set up to be that guy to sing those songs. Then you've got songs like High Voltage and Live Wire, which are kind of catchy and heavy, which may be a little bit more set up for the guitar players in this particular part. But I mean, again, his vocals are the main reason that this band, I think, along with their catchiness of their music, that really brought them to the international fame. Now, they kind of had a breakthrough with this album. This is the album that kind of brought them across the pond. And not just this pond, but all the ponds. Launched them into a beginning of what would turn out to be one of the biggest careers in rock history. And the guy here that launched that, he's a main cog in that reason. And so I think he deserves to be recognized any chance you get, right? Really. And there's a lot of really good stuff on it. And the only unfortunate part about this album is it's a great album from top to bottom. I love almost everything. I could do without Highway to Hell only because I've heard it 1.5 billion times. I don't need to hear it 1.5 billion more. In fact, if I never hear it again, I'll be fine. But the rest of the tracks, Girls Got Rhythm, Walk All Over You, Touch Too Much, Shut Down in Flames, Love Hungry Man, Get It Hot, Get It Hot. Yeah. All attitude, catchy stuff. The type of music that you can't help but sing along with when it's playing. You just, the energy is there. It pulls you out. You want to sing, you know. And I think it's Bon Scott's voice that makes me want to sing because he gives that inflection of attitude, you know. Anyways, the other album that really launched this band for me and made Bon Scott, to me, one of the greatest of all time as a frontman, as a vocalist, is this album, Let There Be Rock. This is just a top to bottom, crashing, banging, catchy riff, hard rock and roll album. You know, everything on this album is fantastic. It's got good production. This to me, this is the poster boy for AC/DC, this album. You know, look at it. Look at the attitude here. You know, this is a band that knows they're good, you know. Yeah, just such a great album. And can't say enough about it. It's currently just went into my playlist because I had it as a vinyl, and then I didn't have it for the longest time, and then I got it recently, and so it's worked its way up and now taking its turn. And even the other day, I put it on to see if I wanted to put it in. It was stupid. It was never going to be any doubt about it. I found myself bopping around and singing right away. It just is such a contagious album. The other album I brought up for a different reason. I don't really like this album much. Yes, it's got a couple of decent songs on it. Problem Child being the one that comes to mind most. Dirty Deeds is okay as well. There's a lot of kind of wishy-washy stuff on here. Love at First Feel, nah. Big Balls, stupid. Squealer, just a dumb title. There's a lot of stuff in here I don't really like. I don't like the way that it's kind of cheesy, like a cheesy motel with cheesy music. That's what it feels like. It's the only album of their original ones that I've never really taken to too well. And if Bon Scott wasn't singing, I probably wouldn't take to it at all, right? Anyways, just wanted to give a little touch. So every group has something that you like about them, and in case the ones that the bands you really like a lot, there's many things you like about them, and maybe a few things that you don't like about them. Whereas with bands you don't like, there's often way too many things that you don't like about them. After a while, you just don't listen to them. And I'm pretty good at, if I am not following, if I've heard of a band or I know of them for years and years, I'll give them a chance. I'll listen to them. I'll try listening to them a few times. But if they don't take, if it doesn't take, I don't force it. Like there's a couple bands that people have been pounding on me for years to like, and I just don't like them. It's as simple as that. I don't hate them. I don't hate either of the bands I'm thinking of. They're both great bands, well respected, well liked by many people. They just don't resonate with me. So I don't think of them as bad bands. There are bands that I think of as bad bands who resonate with a lot of people, but I think they're just terrible. But there are bands that are, how do you say it? They're well liked. I respect them. I appreciate what they do. They're just not for me. That's all. So maybe someday they might be, so I don't rule it out. In the case of AC/DC, I took to that first album with Brian Johnson immediately. And then I had to have more. So because it was the only one with him on it, I went back and that was it. I just only wanted to listen to Bon Scott after that. So I'm sorry to say that. Nothing wrong with Brian Johnson. I just think for some reason the music is better under Bon Scott than it was under Brian Johnson. I mean, maybe I'll take some hits for that. I can't do anything about that. Just got to do what you can do. So I don't know really what much I can say about Bon Scott that I haven't said. I think he's one of the, top 10 best frontman of all time. He may not necessarily be one of my top 10, but I think he deserves to be qualified as that. Some people will say, well, Robert Plant and Freddie Mercury and maybe Mick Jagger. These are all guys that come to mind when you think of that. And I think of Bon Scott as being in that group. Maybe he's a little bit less than those guys, but depending on how you're looking at him, right? I don't think he's less. I think he's definitely a guy who belongs in that top 10. And, just fantastic guy. I don't know what more I can say about him other than it's kind of sad that he's gone. And what's more sad is that he passed away at such a young age when they were just on the threshold of superstardom. And I believe firmly that if he had lived, maybe they wouldn't have done Back in Black. Maybe they would have done something else, but it would have been better than, it would have been just as good as Back in Black, maybe better. We'll never know, right? Can't take it away from Brian Johnson. He was the right guy at the right time, and there was the right album. But I firmly believe that if Bon Scott had lived, they would have still been huge. Maybe they would have been bigger in a different way, because a lot of these albums, although they do have some similarity between them, each of them have something that's similar. They have a common sound, but they also have some fantastic stuff that is different on every album. There's a different feel from every album. I don't find that as much with the Brian Johnson era. From For Those About to Rock until now, to me, they are just one big album. It's like a 10-disc CD, right? Yeah, but so I feel like it's unfortunate that Bon Scott had to pass right at the cusp of coming into his superstardom. I wonder how much of a superstar he would now be considered if he had lived that whole time. Hard to say. We will never know, but I would have to say that he would have gotten even bigger than he is now. Anyways, I don't really have a lot to say about Bon Scott tonight, other than all the things I've already said. I don't know what more I can say. Anybody want to make any comments about him in the comment section below? By all means, please do so. There's always people that want to tell you little stories or anecdotes about him. I enjoy those. Those are kind of interesting. History lessons, not really. I know enough about him. I don't need to know everything. But if you want to leave history lessons, you can do that as well. Anyways, I apologize for the confusion with the upload. It wasn't my intention. I've never had this issue before, so I'm not even sure what it was that was the issue, but I will go back and figure it out, and then it won't happen again, hopefully. So anyways, everybody have a good evening, and we will be back later tonight with an episode of What's New. So take care and have yourself a good one. Goodbye.